A billionaire, a private island, presidents, princes, and tech moguls on flight logs. But what the media didn't tell you is what he was really planning. A ranch in New Mexico designed to inseminate 20 women at a time with his DNA, creating a super race, modifying human genetics, playing God. And the Bible warned this exact scenario would happen in the last days. Genesis chapter 6 describes a time when powerful beings corrupted human DNA, creating hybrids called Nephilim. God destroyed that world with a flood. And Jesus said in Matthew 24, verse 37, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." Genetic corruption, powerful elites, hidden evil, a plan to alter what it means to be human. It happened before the flood. Epstein tried to restart it, and Revelation says it's coming again before Christ returns. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is documented fact connected to biblical prophecy. If you want to understand what Jeffrey Epstein was really doing, why the most powerful people on earth were connected to him, how this links to Genesis 6 and the book of Revelation, and what it means that we're living in the days of Noah returned, then you need to hear this complete investigation. Subscribe right now. We're going to examine court documents, flight logs, scientific papers Epstein funded, and connect them to specific biblical prophecies about the last days. This will challenge everything you thought you knew. Hit subscribe. Then prepare to see how a billionaire's plan to corrupt human genetics is exactly what the Bible predicted would happen before Jesus returns. The official story versus the hidden agenda. The mainstream media told you Jeffrey Epstein was a financier who ran a sex trafficking operation. That's true, but it's not the whole truth. It's not even the main truth. Court documents, investigative reports, and interviews with scientists reveal something far more disturbing. Epstein wasn't just exploiting people. He was attempting to fundamentally alter the human species. The New York Times published an article in July 2019 titled, "Jeffrey Epstein hoped to seed human race with his DNA." Not a conspiracy website. The New York Times, one of the most established newspapers in America. The article revealed that Epstein told scientists and businessmen about his plan to use his New Mexico ranch as a base where women would be inseminated with his sperm and give birth to his babies. Not one woman, not two, 20 women at a time, continuously, creating hundreds, potentially thousands of children carrying his genetics. This wasn't pillow talk. This wasn't fantasy. He bought a 7,500-acre ranch called Zorro Ranch specifically for this purpose. He drew up plans. He discussed logistics with scientists. He was deadly serious. But it gets worse, much worse. Epstein was obsessed with something called transhumanism, the idea that humans can and should use technology to transcend our biological limitations, to become more than human, to evolve beyond Homo sapiens into something new, something better. He attended conferences on genetic engineering. He funded research into CRISPR gene editing technology. He bankrolled scientists working on artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, and life extension. He wanted to live forever, and he wanted to create a new race of superior humans, starting with his own DNA. The Guardian newspaper reported in 2019 that Epstein wanted his head and penis frozen after death, so they could be brought back to life in the future when technology advanced enough. He believed in cryogenic preservation. He thought he could cheat death and be resurrected by science. This is not normal billionaire behavior. This is something else entirely. This is a man who viewed himself as a god, who believed he could improve on God's creation, who thought he had the right to redesign humanity itself. And the Bible has a name for this kind of thinking. It's called the spirit of Antichrist. The desire to be like God, to replace God, to usurp God's authority over creation. Isaiah chapter 14 verses 13 and 14 records Satan's original rebellion. "For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will be like the Most High. That's the root, the desire to be God, to have God's power without God's authority, to create without being the creator, to give life without being the source of life. Epstein embodied this spirit, and he wasn't alone. The powerful elite connected to Epstein flight logs from Epstein's private jets, nicknamed the Lolita Express, reveal a stunning list of the world's most powerful people. Not speculation, not rumor. Official pilot logs documenting who flew where and when. President Bill Clinton. At least 26 documented flights on Epstein's planes. Secret Service logs confirm trips to Africa, Asia, and Europe with Epstein. Clinton initially denied knowing Epstein well, but flight logs and witness testimony prove extensive contact over years. President Donald Trump. Photographs at parties together in the 1990s and early 2000s. Trump on record in a 2002 New York Magazine article calling Epstein a terrific guy and noting he's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Trump later distanced himself, claiming he had a falling out with Epstein and banned him from Mar-a-Lago. But the photos exist. The quote exists. The connection existed. Prince Andrew, Duke of York, son of Queen Elizabeth II, multiple photos with Epstein and victims, flew on Epstein's planes, stayed at Epstein's properties. A civil lawsuit accused Andrew of sexual abuse of a minor provided by Epstein. He eventually settled out of court and was stripped of military titles and royal patronages. Bill Gates, founder of Microsoft, met with Epstein multiple times after Epstein's 2008 conviction. The New York Times documented at least 6 occasions. Gates's spokesperson initially denied the meetings, then admitted them but claimed they were about philanthropy. Gates's own wife, Melinda, expressed discomfort with her husband's relationship with Epstein, which contributed to their divorce according to reports. Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla and SpaceX, photographed at a Vanity Fair Oscar party in 2014 with Epstein's alleged madam. Musk denied close association, but the photo exists. And given Epstein's obsession with artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, and transhumanism, all areas Musk works in, the connection raises questions. Les Wexner, founder of Victoria's Secret and The Limited, Epstein's main financial backer and arguably his only confirmed client. Wexner gave Epstein power of attorney over his finances. Epstein lived in Wexner's New York mansion. The relationship was so close that many questioned whether Epstein actually managed money or provided other services. Countless scientists, academics, MIT professors, Harvard researchers. Epstein donated millions to scientific research, particularly in genetics, artificial intelligence, and cognitive science. He hosted conferences bringing together top minds in these fields. He wanted access to cutting-edge research into human enhancement. Why were all these powerful people connected to one man? What did Epstein provide that attracted presidents, princes, billionaires, and brilliant scientists? The surface answer is obvious and disturbing, but there's a deeper answer. Epstein offered something more than physical gratification. He offered a vision, a transhumanist vision of humanity 2.0, a world where the elite could live forever, enhance their children genetically, and create a superior class of post-humans. And the Bible predicted that in the last days, the powerful would unite around exactly this kind of agenda. Revelation's warning about the elite revelation, chapters 17 and 18, describe a system called Babylon the Great. Not a physical city, but a worldwide system of political, economic, and spiritual corruption that dominates the earth in the final days before Christ's return. Revelation chapter 17, verse 2, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. The kings of the earth, the rulers, the powerful elite. They commit fornication with this Babylon system. They're intimately connected to it. They benefit from it. They perpetuate it. Verse 3 continues, "And I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman represents the Babylon system. She rides the beast of political power. She controls it, directs it, uses it for her purposes." Chapter 18, verse 3, reveals the economic dimension. "For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury." Kings and merchants, political power and economic power, united, working together, getting rich through this corrupt system. But here's what most people miss. Verse 9 describes what these kings love about Babylon. "The kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning." They lived luxuriously with her. Babylon provides luxury, pleasure, indulgence, everything the flesh desires without moral restraint. And verse 23 gives us a crucial detail about how Babylon operates. "For your merchants were the great men of the earth, for by your sorcery all the nations were deceived." Sorcery. The Greek word is pharmakia. It's where we get the word pharmacy. It refers to drugs, potions, chemical manipulation, and by extension in modern context, biological and genetic manipulation. Babylon deceives all nations through pharmakia, through chemical and biological manipulation, through substances and technologies that alter human nature. Could this include genetic modification, synthetic biology, transhumanism, the very things Epstein was funding? The connection becomes even clearer in verse 13, which lists the merchandise traded in this Babylon system. After listing luxury goods, it ends with, "and the souls of men." Human trafficking, the trade of human beings, bodies and souls bought and sold like commodities, exactly what Epstein was accused of. But in the context of his genetic plans, it takes on an even darker meaning, not just trafficking bodies, but attempting to own and control human genetic destiny itself. The powerful elite in Revelation's last days are united around a system that provides unlimited luxury and pleasure, deceives nations through pharmakeia, biological manipulation, traffics in human bodies and souls, operates in secret until its destruction. That's not a vague prophecy. That's a specific description, and Epstein's network fits the pattern exactly. Genesis 6, the first genetic corruption. But this isn't the first time in biblical history that powerful beings tried to corrupt human genetics. It happened before, in the days of Noah, and Jesus explicitly said those days would return. Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. "Now it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose." Sons of God is a phrase used in the Old Testament to refer to angelic beings. Job 1-6, Job 2-1, Job 38:7. All use this exact phrase for angels. These were not human men. These were fallen angels, demons following Satan's rebellion. They saw human women were beautiful, and they took them as wives, not consensual marriage. The Hebrew indicates forceful taking. They seized women, bred with them, created hybrid offspring. Verse 4 describes the result. There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Giants, the Hebrew word is Nephilim, which means fallen ones. These were not normal humans. They were hybrids, part human, part something else. The result of corrupted genetics, a mixing of angelic and human DNA, creating something God never intended. They were mighty men, men of renown, the legends, the demigods of ancient mythology. Greek myths about half-god heroes like Hercules, Perseus, Achilles. Norse myths about giants. Every ancient culture has these legends. The Bible says they were real, and they were the product of genetic corruption. But notice it says, and also afterward. After what? After the flood. This happened again after Noah. Numbers 13:33 describes the Israelite spies seeing Nephilim in Canaan. Giants like Goliath descended from this corrupted bloodline. This is why God commanded Israel to completely destroy certain Canaanite peoples. Not genocide, but elimination of genetically corrupted lineages. But here's the critical point. Why did God send the flood? Verse 5, Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Total moral corruption. But there's more. Verse 11, The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Verse 12, So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. All flesh had corrupted their way. Indeed, the Hebrew word for corrupted is shachath, which means ruined, destroyed, marred, corrupted genetically. The Nephilim hadn't just made people morally evil, they had corrupted human DNA itself. Humanity was becoming genetically polluted. The image of God in humans was being destroyed. That's why God sent the flood, to destroy the Nephilim and their hybrid bloodlines, to preserve pure human genetics through Noah's family. Genesis 6:9 says, Noah was perfect in his generations. Not morally perfect. He got drunk after the flood. Genetically perfect, uncontaminated, fully human. God was protecting humanity from genetic extinction and corruption. And Jesus said this exact scenario would repeat in the last days. Matthew 24, as in the days of Noah. Matthew chapter 24 records Jesus' prophecy about the end times. The disciples asked him, What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Jesus gave them multiple signs: wars, earthquakes, famines, false prophets, gospel preached to all nations. But then he said something specific about the nature of the times. Verse 37, But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. As the days of Noah. Not similar to, not reminiscent of, as the same conditions, the same events, the same spiritual and physical realities. What characterized the days of Noah? Moral corruption, every thought only evil, continually violence filling the earth. Nephilim, genetic hybrids from fallen angels breeding with humans, genetic corruption, all flesh had corrupted their way, a global elite of mighty men of renown, dominating society, hidden evil operating openly, God's patience running out. Jesus said the days before his return would be exactly like that. All those elements would return. Moral corruption. Check. Look at modern society. Sexual immorality celebrated. Evil called good and good called evil. Isaiah 5:20 fulfilled daily. Violence. Check. More people died violently in the 20th century than all previous centuries combined, and it's accelerating. But what about genetic corruption? What about attempts to create Nephilim-like hybrids? What about the mighty men using technology to play God? That's where Epstein comes in, and the scientists he funded, and the transhumanist movement, and CRISPR gene editing, and synthetic biology, and artificial intelligence merging with human consciousness. The technology now exists to do what the sons of God did in Genesis 6, to corrupt human genetics, to create hybrids, to fundamentally alter what it means to be human, and the global elite are pursuing it openly, with billions of dollars, with government support in some cases, with little ethical oversight. We're living in the days of Noah, the same spirit, the same agenda, the same attempt to corrupt humanity at the genetic level, different methodology, technology instead of direct angelic intervention, but the same goal. Epstein was part of this. His ranch in New Mexico, his funding of genetic research, his obsession with creating superior offspring, his connections to the most powerful people on Earth who share this vision. This isn't one man's sick fantasy. This is a movement, and the Bible predicted it. The transhumanist agenda. Let's be clear about what transhumanism actually is. It's not science fiction. It's not future speculation. It's happening now. Transhumanism is the belief that humans should use technology to transcend our biological limitations, to become more than human, to evolve into post-humans with capabilities far beyond natural humans. Key figures in this movement include Ray Kurzweil, Google's director of engineering. He predicts we'll achieve technological singularity by 2045, when artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence and we merge with AI. He takes 100-plus supplement pills daily, trying to live long enough to reach escape velocity, the point where medical technology extends life faster than we age. Elon Musk, who founded Neuralink specifically to create brain-computer interfaces, he stated publicly that humans must merge with AI or become irrelevant. Neuralink has already implanted chips in animal brains and began human trials. The goal is direct neural interface between human brains and computers. Yuval Noah Harari, historian and philosopher, advisor to the World Economic Forum. He's written extensively about the future of Homo Deus, God-humans, who will upgrade themselves through technology. He openly discusses a future where there's a biological elite with enhanced capabilities and a useless class of unenhanced humans. Peter Thiel, billionaire investor, PayPal co-founder. He's invested heavily in companies pursuing life extension, including receiving blood transfusions from young people trying to reverse aging. He's stated he wants to live forever and sees death as a problem to be solved through technology. These aren't fringe figures. These are some of the wealthiest, most influential people on the planet. They're funding research, they're building companies. They're advancing an agenda to fundamentally alter humanity, and Epstein was connected to many of them. He attended the same conferences. He funded similar research. He shared their vision of transcending normal human limitations. The technologies they're pursuing include CRISPR gene editing, the ability to edit human DNA like software code, add genes, remove genes, modify genetic sequences, designer babies with enhanced intelligence, strength, beauty, elimination of genetic diseases, but also the temptation to create superhumans, synthetic biology, creating artificial life forms, engineering organisms from scratch, mixing human DNA with animal DNA or completely synthetic genetic code, hybrid creatures that have never existed, brain-computer interfaces, direct neural connection between human brains and artificial intelligence, downloading knowledge instantly, uploading consciousness to computers, merging human and machine intelligence, life extension immortality, defeating aging and death through technology, cryogenic preservation, consciousness uploading, genetic modification to stop or reverse aging. The explicit goal of many transhumanists is technological immortality, artificial intelligence surpassing human intelligence, creating AI that's smarter than humans, then merging with it. The singularity where human and artificial intelligence become indistinguishable. Every one of these technologies exists today in some form. They're being developed, funded, implemented, moving from lab to market, and every one of them represents humanity trying to transcend the limitations God placed on us, trying to become like God, trying to create life, defeat death, and redesign ourselves. It's Genesis 3 all over again. The serpent's promise, you will be like God. It's Genesis 6 again. Corruption of human genetics, creating beings God never intended. It's Genesis 11 again. Tower of Babel. Humanity uniting to make a name for ourselves and reach heaven through our own efforts. And it's exactly what Revelation predicts will happen in the last days, before Babylon falls and Christ returns. Daniel's prophecy. They shall mingle themselves. The book of Daniel contains a prophecy that many scholars believe refers to genetic mixing in the last days. Daniel chapter 2 records King Nebuchadnezzar's dream of a great statue with a head of gold, chest of silver, belly of bronze, legs of iron, and feet of iron mixed with clay. Daniel interprets this as successive kingdoms culminating in a final kingdom in the latter days. Verse 43 describes this final kingdom. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. They will mingle with the seed of men. Who is they? If the verse is talking about seed of men, then they must be something other than normal men. Seed in Hebrew is zera, which refers to offspring, descendants, genetics. Mingle is Arab, meaning to mix, to commingle, to intermingle. The verse describes non-human entities mixing their genetics with human genetics, but they will not adhere to one another. The mixing won't be stable. Like iron and clay don't properly bond. Many biblical scholars interpret this as a return of the Genesis 6 scenario, fallen angels or their agents attempting to corrupt human genetics again. But the corruption won't be complete. It won't properly take. There will be instability. This could describe exactly what modern genetic engineering produces. Mixing human DNA with animal DNA creates unstable organisms. Synthetic biology creates life forms that don't reproduce well or die quickly. Gene editing sometimes causes unexpected mutations. The technology exists, but it's not perfect. It doesn't adhere properly. They will mingle with the seed of men through technology, through genetic engineering, through synthetic biology, creating hybrids, post-humans, beings that are part human and part something else. Epstein wanted to do this. He wanted to seed the human race with his genetics on a massive scale. He funded scientists working on exactly these technologies. And Daniel says this will characterize the final world kingdom before God's kingdom crushes it and fills the earth. We're watching prophecy unfold. Revelation 9. Those who seek death but cannot die. Revelation chapter 9 describes events during the Great Tribulation. Demonic beings are released to torment humanity. But verse 6 contains a disturbing detail. In those days, men will seek death and will not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee from them. Then people wanting to die but unable to die. Why? How? In a world of natural death, this makes no sense. If someone wants to die, they can. But this verse describes a situation where death becomes impossible even for those who desire it. Could this be describing the result of transhumanist technologies? Life extension taken too far. People modified genetically or merged with AI to the point where they can't die, even though their existence has become torment. Ray Kurzweil and other transhumanists explicitly seek technological immortality. But what if immortality without God becomes a curse instead of a blessing? What if consciousness uploaded to a computer can't be shut off? What if genetic modifications prevent death, but don't prevent suffering? The Bible teaches that death entered the world through sin in Genesis 3. Death is not natural to humanity, it's the consequence of rebellion. In God's original design and in the restoration, there is no death. Revelation 21:4 says, in the New Jerusalem, there shall be no more death. But here's the key. Eternal life with God is blessing. Eternal existence without God is hell. Literally. Transhumanists want to defeat death through technology. But technology can't address the spiritual problem. If you make your body immortal, but your soul is still separated from God, you haven't achieved life. You've achieved eternal death, conscious existence forever, without hope, without redemption, without end. Revelation 9 may be describing people who use technology to make themselves unable to die, but now realize they're trapped in an existence worse than death. Epstein wanted to live forever. He wanted his head cryogenically frozen. He believed technology could resurrect him, but if he succeeded, if he managed to extend his existence indefinitely through technology, what would that existence be? Separated from God, guilty of horrific crimes, conscious forever without forgiveness. That's not eternal life, that's eternal torment. And Revelation 9 suggests this won't just be Epstein. It will be many people in the last days who seek technological immortality and achieve a fate worse than death. The mark of the beast, biological modification. Revelation chapter 13 describes the mark of the beast. Most people know about it, most have theories, but few connect it to genetic modification. Verses 16 through 18, he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. A mark on the right hand or forehead, required to buy or sell, connected to the name or number of the beast. Traditional interpretations focused on physical marks, tattoos, microchips. But what if it's deeper? What if it's genetic? Consider, God created humans in his image. Genesis 1:27. The image of God is stamped on human DNA. We bear his mark as creator. What if the mark of the beast is a competing mark? A genetic modification that alters the image of God in humans. A change to human DNA that makes someone no longer fully human, no longer bearing God's image. If you modify human genetics fundamentally enough, do you stop being human? Do you stop being created in God's image? Do you become something else? Something that can't be redeemed? This is terrifying theology, but it's a serious question. If the mark of the beast changes human nature at the genetic level, it might make salvation impossible, not because God's grace is insufficient, but because the person is no longer the creature God designed to save. Genesis 6 suggests this was the case with the Nephilim. They were unredeemable. They had to be destroyed. Why? Possibly because they weren't fully human. They were hybrids, corrupted genetics, not created in God's image. If the mark of the beast works similarly, fundamentally altering human genetics, then taking the mark might mean rejecting God's design and accepting a counterfeit design. Becoming post-human, no longer bearing the image of God. This would explain why Revelation is so emphatic that anyone who takes the mark is damned forever. Revelation 14:9-11 says, anyone who worships the beast and receives his mark shall be tormented with fire and brimstone, and the smoke of their torment ascends forever and ever. Not temporary punishment, not probation, permanent eternal damnation for taking the mark. Why so severe? Perhaps because taking the mark irrevocably changes what you are. You're no longer human, no longer in God's image, no longer redeemable. This isn't about a credit card or a microchip. This is about accepting fundamental modification of your created nature. And the technologies to do this exist now. CRISPR can edit human DNA. Neuralink can interface brains with computers. Synthetic biology can create hybrid organisms. The pieces are in place for exactly this kind of mark. Epstein was funding research into these technologies. The transhumanist elite are pursuing them actively. The infrastructure is being built. We're closer to this scenario than most people realize. And Revelation warns that when it comes, people will face a choice. Remain human, created in God's image, and refuse the mark, which means economic exclusion, persecution, possibly death. or accept the mark, gain access to the economic system and enhancement technologies, but lose your humanity and your soul. That's the choice that's coming, and Genesis 6 shows us it's happened before. The Antichrist, the ultimate post-human second. Thessalonians chapter 2 describes the Antichrist, called the man of sin and the son of perdition. Verse 4, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. The Antichrist claims to be God, not just acts like God, claims to be God, sits in God's temple as God. But how could anyone successfully claim divinity? Throughout history, many have tried, all have failed. Humans know we're not God. We're mortal, limited, flawed. But what if the Antichrist isn't fully human? What if he's post-human, enhanced through technology or demonic power or genetic modification to the point where he appears superhuman, demonstrating powers and abilities that convince people he's divine? 2 Thessalonians 2:9 says his coming is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders. Power, signs, wonders, supernatural abilities, or sufficiently advanced technology that appears supernatural. Arthur C. Clarke famously said, "Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic." What if the Antichrist uses transhumanist technologies, genetic enhancement, AI integration, synthetic biology to appear godlike? He might not age. He might demonstrate superhuman intelligence. He might heal from any wound. He might access information instantly through brain-computer interface. He might even claim to have conquered death. All of this could be achieved through technology that exists now in primitive forms. Perfect it, scale it, apply it to one individual, and you get someone who appears to be more than human, post-human, godlike. That would explain how he deceives the world, not just through lies, but through genuine apparent abilities that seem to prove his divinity. And Daniel 11:37-38 says something interesting about him. He shall regard neither the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any god, for he shall exalt himself above them all. But in their place he shall honor a god of fortresses, and a god which his fathers did not know he shall honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and pleasant things. He won't regard the desire of women. Some interpret this as homosexuality, others as asexuality. But what if it's more fundamental? What if he's beyond biological reproduction, post-human, enhanced, no longer operating by normal human drives, and he honors a god which his fathers did not know? Not a traditional deity, something new. Could this be technology itself? AI? The transhumanist dream of human enhancement and technological transcendence? If the Antichrist is the ultimate post-human, the culmination of the transhumanist agenda, it explains why he succeeds where others failed. He's not just claiming to be God, he's demonstrating abilities that seem divine through technology, and the world, already conditioned by decades of transhumanist propaganda, accepts him. Epstein's network, the scientists he funded, the elite he connected with, they're building the infrastructure for this, not necessarily knowingly. Not everyone involved in transhumanism is consciously preparing for the Antichrist, but they're creating the technologies, the social acceptance, the philosophical framework that will make his arrival possible. 1 John, the spirit of Antichrist is already here. 1 John chapter 4, verses 1-3. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard was coming, and is now already in the world. The spirit of Antichrist was already in the world in John's day, 2,000 years ago, It didn't start with Epstein or transhumanism, but it's always had the same characteristic, denying that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. Why is this specific confession so important? Because it affirms something crucial about both Jesus and humanity. Jesus Christ came in the flesh. God became man, fully divine and fully human, not a phantom, not a spiritual being appearing to be human, actually human, with human DNA, human body, human limitations. The incarnation affirms that humanity, created in God's image, given physical bodies, is good, worth redeeming, worth God himself becoming human. The spirit of Antichrist denies this. It says the physical is bad, inferior, something to be transcended. It rejects the body. It rejects God's design for humanity. It seeks to go beyond human, to become post-human, to leave behind the limitations of the flesh. That's transhumanism in a nutshell. The flesh is limiting. The body is a prison. Death is unacceptable. We must transcend biology through technology. We must become more than human. This is the spirit of Antichrist. Not yet the person of Antichrist, but the philosophy, the worldview, the spiritual force that prepares the way for him. And Epstein embodied it, his contempt for normal human limitations, his desire to live forever, his plan to improve the human race through his genetics, his funding of technologies to transcend humanity. 1 John 2:18 says, "Little children, it is the last hour. And as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come, by which we know that it is the last hour." Many Antichrists, not just one. Many people throughout history embodying the spirit of Antichrist, rejecting God's design, rejecting the incarnation, seeking to transcend humanity and become like God through their own power. Epstein was one of many, but his wealth, his connections, his influence, and his specific focus on genetic modification made him particularly significant. He wasn't just embodying the spirit, he was actively working to implement it, to literally change human genetics, to create post-humans. And the Bible says when enough of these antichrists emerge, when the spirit of Antichrist reaches critical mass, when the infrastructure is in place, then the Antichrist himself will appear. We're watching the stage being set. The hope, Jesus is returning. This is dark, I know. Genetic corruption, elite pedophile networks, transhumanism, the mark of the beast, the Antichrist, days of Noah, judgment coming. But here's the critical point. This is not a reason for despair. This is a reason for hope. Jesus said in Luke 21:28, "Now when these things begin to happen, look up and lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near." When you see these signs, including the return of Genesis 6 conditions, the rise of the transhumanist agenda, the corruption of powerful elites, attempts to alter human genetics, these are birth pangs. They signal that the end is approaching, that Jesus is coming back. The same Jesus who came in the flesh 2,000 years ago is coming again, but this time not as a suffering servant, as conquering king. Revelation 19:11-16 describes his return. "Now I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and makes war. His eyes were like a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. He had a name written that no one knew except himself. He was clothed with a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies in heaven, clothed in fine linen, white and clean, followed him on white horses. Now out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should strike the nations, and he himself will rule them with a rod of iron. He himself treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. And he has on his robe and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords." King of Kings, Lord of Lords, he's coming to judge, to make war against evil, to strike the nations, to destroy Babylon. to defeat the Antichrist, to end the corruption. Revelation 18:2 describes Babylon's fall. Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons. The system that Epstein was part of, that the elite perpetuate, that's trying to corrupt humanity, it's going to fall. God will destroy it, completely, finally, forever. And after Babylon falls, after the Antichrist is defeated, after this age ends, Revelation 21 describes what comes next. Now I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away. Also there was no more sea. Then I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. No more death, no more pain, no more corruption, no more genetic abominations, no more trafficking, no more elite predators, no more transhumanist deception, God dwelling with humanity in resurrected, glorified, eternal bodies, human bodies, not transcended, not left behind, redeemed, perfected, made immortal, not through technology but through God's power. That's the future for everyone who trusts in Jesus Christ. Not post-human, fully human as God intended, image bearers, living forever with our Creator. Epstein wanted to be God. The transhumanists want to be God. The Antichrist will claim to be God. But they'll all fail, because there's only one God, and he's coming back to prove it, the choice. So what do you do with this information? How do you respond? First, recognize the times we're living in. These are the last days. The days of Noah returned. The signs Jesus predicted are manifesting. The stage is being set for the final act of human history before Christ's return. Don't be deceived by transhumanist promises. They're not offering advancement. They're offering corruption, not enhancement, enslavement, not life, death dressed up as progress. Second, refuse the mark when it comes, whatever form it takes, genetic modification, brain-computer interface, mandatory enhancement. Refuse it, even if it means economic exclusion, even if it costs everything. Your humanity is not negotiable. Your soul is not for sale. Revelation 14:12 says, Here is the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Patience, endurance, keeping faith even under pressure. That's what's required. Third, trust in Jesus Christ for salvation, not in technology, not in human wisdom, not in your own efforts, in Jesus alone. He came in the flesh, fully human. He died for human sins. He rose bodily from the dead. He's returning bodily to reign. And he offers salvation to everyone who believes. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. Not technological immortality through genetic modification. Everlasting life through faith in Jesus Christ. Life that doesn't just extend existence, but transforms it. Life in relationship with God. Life that's actually worth living forever. Fourth, expose the darkness. Ephesians 5:11. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. Cases like Epstein's need to be brought to light. The transhumanist agenda needs to be exposed for what it is, the spirit of Antichrist preparing the way for his arrival. The corruption of the elite needs to be revealed, not with conspiracy theories, but with facts, documentation, and biblical analysis. That's why I made this video, to expose, to warn, to connect dots, to show you that what seems like unrelated news stories, Epstein's crimes, transhumanism, genetic modification, elite corruption, are actually interconnected pieces of biblical prophecy unfolding before our eyes. Fifth, share this message, subscribe to this channel, like this video so the algorithm spreads it further, share it with everyone you know, comment below with your thoughts and questions. We need to get this information out while we still can. The time is short. Jesus is coming. Babylon is falling. The Antichrist is rising. But God is still on his throne, and his plan will prevail. Conclusion: Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just a criminal. He was a symbol, a manifestation of the spirit of Antichrist, a picture of the elite corruption and genetic manipulation that Revelation predicts will characterize the last days. His network included the most powerful people on earth: presidents, princes, billionaires, scientists, all connected to a man who wanted to corrupt human genetics and create a post-human future. The Bible warned this would happen. Genesis 6, Daniel 2, Matthew 24, Revelation 9, Revelation 13, Revelation 17 and 18, 1 John, 2 Thessalonians. The days of Noah are returning. Genetic corruption, Nephilim-like hybrids, elite mighty men, hidden evil, transhumanism, the mark of the beast, the spirit of Antichrist preparing for the Antichrist himself. But Jesus is coming back. He will judge the living and the dead. He will destroy Babylon. He will defeat the beast. He will establish his kingdom, and he will dwell with redeemed humanity forever. That's the hope. That's the promise. That's the gospel. And it's available to you right now. Believe in Jesus Christ. Trust his death and resurrection. Receive forgiveness and eternal life. Become part of God's family. Stand firm in the last days. Endure to the end, and you will be saved. Subscribe to this channel for more biblical analysis of current events and last days prophecy. Like this video. Share it everywhere. Comment with your thoughts. And most importantly, make sure you're ready for what's coming. Because Jesus said, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man." Those days are here. Look up. Your redemption draws near.